going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and fortunately or unfortunately, hyperinflation is here. So we're gonna talk about what it is, what it means, and what you can do to protect yourself. And surprisingly, we're also going to talk about how debt, or at least good debt, might actually save you. Sorry, Dave Ramsey, but with all of that being said, let's jump into it. All right, guys, if you're like me, you've probably hit a point in your life where you feel like we're in a movie. I don't know if every time you open up your phone and you look at the headlines for the day, you're like, holy cow, this is what I saw in all these movies growing up, and I feel like it's actually happening. You go from COVID to transitory inflation, to a war over in Russia and Ukraine, to all of this crazy government spending, and the list goes on and on and on. And I've probably missed, I don't know, a couple dozen other headlines that honestly are scary, and I'm sure you're all feeling it. Now, with all of this craziness, I'm sure that you're trying to figure out what's best for you, for your family, for your business, and a myriad of other things. And I'm going to tell you right now that hyperinflation is the real deal. And some people might argue with me, and I might even argue with myself, because whether you call it hyperinflation or just come to terms with the fact that big inflation is going to happen in America consistently for potentially an extended period of time, either one of those is scary, and both of them are things you need to prepare for. So depending on your definition of hyperinflation, either way, lots of inflation has happened and will continue to happen, and we need to talk about what that means for you and what you need to do. Now, if you're saying, Chandler, I don't even know what inflation is, let alone hyperinflation, let me read you the definition. Hyperinflation is a term used to describe rapid, excessive, and out of control general price increases in an economy. Now, here's what that means. Inflation is when your dollar becomes worth less because the prices of everything go up. Now, you can look at this as a couple different ways. You can say, hey, prices have gone up by 7.5% on literally everything. Or you can say my dollar is worth less because it only buys 92.5% of what it used to be able to buy. However you look at it, it just means that your dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. Now, the government is saying that inflation rates are at 7.9% year over year. However, other people have argued that it's over 15% depending on what you're looking at and how you run those numbers. Either way, it's bad or good, depending on how you play your cards. Now, I'm probably going to get a hard time for using the word hyperinflation, so let's just say long-term elevated inflation rates. But either way, inflation is a real issue, and so today we're gonna talk about it. The biggest issue with inflation is that it literally affects everyone. Whether you've got a business, whether you're an individual, your dollar just doesn't go as far, and so things cost more, so you have to spend more of the dollars that you have. This is bad if you have a big stockpile of cash, because a stockpile of cash that, let's say you're sitting on 100,000 or $1 million or 10 million, however much you're sitting on, it's going down in value drastically because it can't buy as much. Now, if you don't have a big stockpile of cash, that's not necessarily a good thing either, because it probably means that you're in a job where you're living paycheck to paycheck, and unfortunately your wages aren't going to rise as quickly as the prices of things are. Now, the other day I was sitting with one of my buddies and I was talking about how crazy this inflation is, and he goes, well, that's good news. I don't have any money in the bank, so I don't have to worry about it. And I'm like, well, here's the issue. If you don't have money in the bank, it's probably because you haven't been making in excess, and so you're living paycheck to paycheck. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, your wages aren't going to keep up with how expensive things are getting. At least it doesn't look like they're going to, because that's not usually how it works. So if you're getting paid $15 an hour or $20 an hour and you've been living paycheck to paycheck, but now gas is going up drastically, food is going up drastically, everything is going up drastically, your paycheck isn't going to be able to cut it like it has. If you own a business and you're trying to get product, now you've got to determine whether you've got to raise your prices, how quickly you're going to raise them, how you're going to even get access to the products because supply and demand issues. The issues just go on and on and on, and they're all caused by inflation. Here's the other crazy part about inflation is the government is really trying to keep everything afloat. And the one way that they kind of stomp the brakes on inflation, well, first of all, they kind of threw us into inflation because of excessive spending. And I'm not even going to get into that argument, but when you look at COVID, when you look at our situation with Russia and Ukraine, when you look at a myriad of other things, the government has been spending money like crazy and putting a lot more money into play, which is a big reason that we are dealing with inflation. So not only do we have supply and demand issues, but we've also got a government that's gone spending crazy, and the combination of those things has given us what I believe to be hyperinflation, or just excessive inflation. So the government is definitely not innocent in this. As a matter of fact, I think it's kind of pretty easy to point the finger at them. However, they recognize that and they're trying to do what they can to control it, and one of the biggest ways they can stomp the brakes on inflation is by increasing interest rates. And increasing interest rates essentially has the goal of slowing down the economy. We lower interest rates to speed up the economy and get people to spend more using debt, and we raise interest rates to get people to say, hey, those interest rates suck, I don't want to spend, I don't want to use debt, and that's going to slow things down. And so you can already see that the Fed has said they're going to increase interest rates, and that's already begun. A lot of analysts suspect that there will be 6 different increases over the course of the next year on interest rates, and how excessive those are going to be, we're just going to have to wait and see. They've made predictions, and the Fed has even put it out and said, hey, this is what our plans are. But a lot of people suspect that it's going to be even worse than what they've planned, and what they've planned already is going to be some spikes in interest rates. Now, this has been a very watered down version of what inflation is, how it works, and how the government is trying to combat it with raising interest rates. But your big question is, Chandler, what should I do? I'm in a situation where I am living paycheck to paycheck, or I do have money stashed away, or I've got a lot of money stashed away, or I've got a business, or whatever you've got going on. You're saying, what can I do? How can I protect myself? How can I keep myself in a good place with all of this that's going on? And hopefully, if you put all of these things into practice, not only are you going to be able to weather the storm, but you'll be better off than you would have had it not been for inflation. And that's our real goal, is to take all of these things that could be negatives and turn them into positives, at least to the best of our ability. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the thing that I believe can protect you the most if done correctly. And that is to buy lots of good assets with good debt. Let me explain. For me, my favorite asset to buy is real estate. I currently own over $25 million worth of real estate, and I've purchased that real estate with good debt. Now, I consider good debt with extremely low interest rates, with a term no shorter than 10 years fixing in those interest rates, but preferably you've locked in those interest rates for 20 to 30 years. Now, here is why that is incredible. Let's say you go and you buy a piece of property that's cash flowing. So after your expenses, after your mortgage, it's making you money every month. But let's say that you buy it with only 25% down. Now you can control 100% of the asset with a low interest rate that you know you've got the money coming in to be able to pay the mortgage, but you control the whole chunk of that asset. So for example's sake, let's say you go and you buy a $100,000 property. And a lot of times you can get into it even lower than 25% down, but we're going to use 25% as the example because you can get that always, right? So you spend $25,000 on this $100,000 asset and you're paying 3% on interest or 3.5% on interest. Well, if inflation is 7.5 or 7.9 or 15%, like some people are saying, the whole property should cost 15% more or more than that due to supply and demand issues. So just inflation alone though, let's say this property goes up by $15,000. Now you've taken your $25,000, you've put it into an asset so you can control $100,000 worth of asset, and it goes up by 15%. Now your asset is worth $115,000. And so by using debt, you're only paying 3%. You're also cash flowing in the process, but now your asset has gone up by 15%. And so your $25,000 that's locked up in this property just turned into $40,000 that's locked up in this property and protected because you own an asset. Where had you kept that $25,000 out of the property, well, not only would have not gone up in value, but it would have gone down by either the 7.9% if you believe the government, or as much as 15% if you believe what a lot of people are saying that the real inflation rate is. Now, this is why I always find it so laughable that people like Dave Ramsey say, oh, you should buy a property in cash. And I see people that have waited for 1, 2, 3, 5 years to save up enough to buy an asset in cash so they don't have a loan, when interest rates have been at an all-time low. And now due to inflation, not only are interest rates going up, but inflation is going up. And so if you haven't purchased a property and you've been thinking about it, use debt and buy the property now and lock it in on good terms. Because as long as you can know that you can afford that mortgage every month, well, guess what? Your mortgage is fixed. Where rents, I'm sorry, with inflation, rents are going to go through the roof just like everything else. And so a lot of these people have been saving their money and now they're blowing it on rents because rents are going up. They're never going to get enough to pay cash, and property values are going up. So everything they save, they're putting into the bank. Well, the property value went up 4 times what they saved that year. So they're never going to be able to purchase that asset because they're trying to buy it with cash when interest rates are extremely low. So if you're in that scenario, I would tell you, find a way to buy good assets, especially real estate, with a good loan that's going to last 30 years fixed, where nothing's going to change on your rates or your terms. Lock that in, and that's going to protect your money. Because if you keep the cash out and you're saving it up, well, I'm sorry, the price of things is going to go up faster than what you're saving, and your money is actually losing value in the process. Now, I think we've kind of covered using debt. We've also covered not stockpiling. But one thing you need to keep in mind is when you're purchasing an asset with debt, you still need to keep cash. And the reason for this is if things do go south and maybe people don't pay their rents, or rents for some reason go down, which I don't see that happening with inflation, you're protected. And a lot of people think, oh, the only way I can be protected is if I buy the property in cash. Well, here's the deal. Rather than coming up with 100% of the cash to buy an asset, put 25% down, save another 25%. You had to come up with half as much money, but 25% of this asset in savings is going to last a long time to be able to cover your mortgage, like a really long time. We're talking years, and that gives you this massive safety net. And so you know, hey, I didn't have enough to pay cash, but I gave myself the safety net that I was wanting to get out of cash while also capitalizing on owning 100% of the asset. And so you can really hedge your bet where you don't feel as bad about the money you do have stockpiled, because you know you spent good money in an asset where you're protected with a locked-in interest rate. This is why I'll never understand the Dave Ramsey method, because you can get the safety and security of cashing money or banking money while also getting the safety and security that using good debt provides to be able to purchase an asset to shield you from inflation. So don't blow all of your money. You still need to be keeping money in reserves while also using a portion of your money to buy assets with a down payment and with debt. Next thing you need to be doing is increasing your income. Now, I know this sounds hard, but here's the deal. If you're working a job you love, you need to go into your boss and you need to say, look, boss, inflation's gone crazy. Everything's gone up by 7.5% or potentially 15%. I need a raise. If I'm going to keep working here, I need a raise. Otherwise, I've got to go look somewhere else because I can't afford my bills with how crazy inflation is going, and that needs to affect me. Everything's becoming more expensive. You can charge more. Unfortunately, you're going to need to pay me more to keep me here. Otherwise, I've got to go look elsewhere. Now, if you're in a place where you don't think that's possible, I would take a step back and say, hey, do I need to look into getting a different job? Or do I need to find a way to go and secure another job in my realm so that I can show them, hey, I've got competition, I've got good leverage. Whatever you do, you've got to find a way to make more, because if your wages aren't changing, you're screwed with inflation. That's just the reality. So find a way to get an increase on the way that you're paid. If you own a business, you've got to find a way to not only increase your prices, but if you do have cash sitting around, I'm telling you the price of the goods that you're selling is going to go up. So if you can stockpile now and get them at lower rates, then I would do it. I've seen a lot of businesses that have killed it over the last couple of years because they saw this coming and they went and loaded up on everything that they needed. So not only did they have inventory, but they could charge a premium for that inventory while they got that inventory at extremely low cost. And so look into it. If your bank is willing to lock in interest rates for an extended period of time for a business loan, that might even be worth considering so that you can go and load up on inventory, because I'm telling you, supply and demand is only going to get more difficult with all of the things going on in our world, and prices are only going to go up. So you might as well put you and your business in a better place by stocking up on the things that you know are going to go up in price if you've got the cash to do it. Now, this last piece of advice is a piece of advice that I personally have not used, but I'm starting to look into it because I haven't found enough assets to purchase with leverage when it comes to the real estate side of things. Now, I have doubled down my efforts in trying to find real estate deals where I can still lock in pretty good interest rates, because I think interest rates are about to go pretty crazy. And that makes me very nervous because that affects my buying power. That affects my ability to protect my money by putting it into assets using debt. And so I want to put away as much money as I can into good assets using debt while the debt is still good. But I've also done some research into investing into the S&P 500. And I got this advice from people like Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, and I'm gonna read exactly what they said because I don't understand this stuff as well, but I understand the principle, and that's why I'm also looking into it. It says, bet on companies that have good products, because if you know that they're going to be a good business long-term, that's a good place to put your money to shield you from inflation. Now, right now, the stock market has taken a pretty hefty dip. And you know, when I publish this video, maybe things will be slightly different, but it might be a good time to jump into these. Specifically, if you don't know where to go, get an S&P 500 low-cost index fund, because multiple of these big players have said that's a safe place to put your money, safe place to hopefully shield you from inflation. Now, I put this a lot lower on my list than buying assets. And so if you're in a place where you're about to buy a home or get into a condo or purchase a rental property, I would double down your efforts, because I truly believe that is the best way to shield yourself. As long as you get proper reserves, you get good debt, you're getting good returns on those properties. It's a great place to be so you can protect yourself. For me, I currently own over $25 million worth of real estate, and rents have only continued to go up because there's just not enough supply and there's huge demand right now. And so I'm watching rents go through the roof. I'm watching it be very competitive to purchase real estate, because a lot of people are saying, hey, with what's going on, I want to get into real estate now. I want to get it while I can get good rates, good terms, because I don't see the market going down, but I do see interest rates going up. So it's a good time to buy if you can find the right deal. And so that's what I'm doing, and I think that's what you should be doing as well. Finally, I don't want to sound like a doomsdayer, but you need to come to terms with the fact that inflation is real, and serious inflation, whether you're calling it hyperinflation or not, it's here, and it's here to stay. And I think it's here to stay for a couple years or longer. And so you need to capitalize. You need to do these things, and you need to protect yourself, because if you're in a place where you don't make the proper steps, you can find yourself in trouble. Like, you really can, because your dollar is not going to go as far, and that's really scary. Now, I feel like if you're a real estate investor, you're already kind of prepared, but right now interest rates are still in a good place, and we only know they're going to go up. And at least in my market and a lot of the markets I'm looking at, there is no supply and massive demand. And so, if you can find a good deal with good debt, please jump into it now. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell. If you're someone that's got the money and you're wanting to get into real estate and you don't know how, go check out my other videos. That's what this channel is here for. And if you're really wanting to buckle down and just get a step-by-step process, you can pick up my real estate investing course down in the description. And if you guys enjoyed the video, again, hit that like button, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future videos. Thanks, guys.